Hello, welcome to our program today. It's nice to spend this time affirming that the story matters with our neighbor and good friend, Chris Hammond. And so, Chris, we welcome you. We call this The Story Matters. So, what's your story?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here, Len. That's a big question.
Yeah, we've got time.
If you start from way back in the beginning, I think as far as Vermont goes, my wife and I were interested in possibly moving somewhere else when our kids were little, and so we thought about different places that might be. We wanted to be in maybe a smaller town, more rural, close to skiing, close to the mountains, and so eventually in 2012 we picked Vermont, and we've been living here ever since in Middlebury. We both brought our own jobs, which was, we weren't sure if it was going to be a permanent thing or maybe we'd do it for a year. The first 2 years lived in different rental houses in town. So we lived over on Washington Street the first year, and then on South Street the second year. And then in June of 2014 we moved into the house across the street from you on Gorham Lane.
Right. And spent a good time, have rolled all ever since, right?
Yes, it's been, the years are going by, and our kids are getting older, and some of them aren't even in the house as much anymore.
Tell us about your wife and your kids. Bring the family into this picture.
Yes, my wife Elaine and I met in college. When she was 19, I was 20. We went to college in Southern Maryland, a small state school called St. Mary's College of Maryland. It was on the water. It was a beautiful place to go to school. So I think when we were dreaming of living in a rural place, we kind of had memories of our time in Southern Maryland on a rural campus, and so that maybe was part of the reason why we were drawn here to Middlebury. We have 3 children. My son Colby is about to turn 21 in a few weeks. He's a junior at the University of Maryland. Our daughter Viviana will be 20 this summer, and she's a sophomore at Duke University. And then we have a 10th grader, Caden, who's at Middlebury High School.
Colby was the basketball player when
yes,
we first moved on the block.
Absolutely. You've been patient neighbors, Len, because there was lots of bouncing of the basketball.
Well, but there's also bouncing on the other side, too. So we've bing, bing, bing.
Yeah.
You know, it's been delightful, though, to know that someone's out there and doing that kind of thing. And they always wave. Your kids always wave.
Good.
And that's good.
Good.
So what do you do by way of work? You said you had jobs.
I do information technology work for the United States Department of Labor. So I'm able to do it from my home. A lot of it is kind of automated, and I'm able to kind of monitor things. And so it's been a good career to be up here for now 12 years and be able to do that from home. And it's the same job I've had for close to 20 years now. So
what is it like to work at home?
You know, it's interesting. I feel like there's advantages that are very apparent. You know, no commute. You don't need to get all dressed up every day with a suit and tie and stuff like that. And then there's some disadvantages. I feel somewhat kind of removed from some of the stuff that goes on in the office. When I have peers that I work with, I don't get a chance to see them in person and develop those relationships. And so, yeah, I would say it's overall a positive, but there are definitely some things that I do miss about being in an office and being together as a team and things like that. Luckily, with technology now, you could still do a lot of that stuff, but it's not the same as being in person.
Yeah.
So.
Tell us about Elaine.
Elaine she works at the college. She's the Director of Equity Initiatives at Middlebury College. So what she does is she kind of tries to level the playing field for kids at Middlebury that might not be the traditional Middlebury students that had always gone there for decades and hundreds of years. So they try to have diversity. They try to have different backgrounds, and she tries to make sure that those kids are supported. So if they're the first generation in their family to go to college, or if they're from an urban area and maybe now they're in a rural area, or if they're a student of color in a predominantly white campus, she just tries to help out those kids as they navigate through their life at Middlebury College.
And as you spend your day, do you get a chance to see the news or do you get late breakfast or?
Right. I mean, I'm constantly, checking or aware of what's going on New York Times website or maybe the Washington Post website. So that helps me feel connected kind of with the outside world. Yeah.
Yeah. And you spend a lot of time outside too.
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about the landscape of your space.
Yeah, I think I'm fortunate that if I need a break from work, I can go outside and, feed the chickens or work on the garden, things like that. And as I mentioned earlier, with no commute, it really does help give you a few extra hours each day to kind of work on these things. So, Len, I know you're right across the street from us. We were excited when we opened up that property and found that rock that you look at at the sunset, right?
Yes.
So when we bought the place in 2014, I think you remember it. It was a little bit neglected. It had been on the market for maybe over 2 years, I think. When we were actually looking at the house, it was wintertime, and I remember going in there, and it would be as cold as it was outside. They turned off the heat, and they drain the water, and it would, we'd be looking at the place trying to decide if we're going to buy it, and it'd be 10 degrees inside. So we did a renovation on the inside, and it turned out well. And so when we moved in June of 2014, the inside was done, and we can kind of turn our attention to the outside. So we knew that the property was picturesque in the back there. We knew it had western views because we could see at our other neighbor, Kate and John's house. Back then it was Al and Barbara Stiles.
Right.
We could see what those views looked like, but we didn't really know how to open it up. So it took a lot of time of cutting down trees and moving things around, and eventually we found that big rock that was there that you could see from your house. And then, the kids would help me. We'd dig out the rock and discover more rock. And finally I got to the point where I realized the entire earth is a rock. So if I kept working on uncovering this rock, I probably wouldn't have any yard left. So I actually started putting the dirt back and making it more landscaped around there.
How big is it?
Well, I know you'll see it in a couple spots. So over by the chicken, that's rock.
Right.
There's a section in the yard where there's more rock poking through. So I'm pretty convinced that the whole thing down to close to the road would be one big ledge. So
this probably goes back to the Wisconsin glacier. That was 12 million years ago or something. That came through. It came down and came back. When it came back up, and that's where a lot of the rock came from. Was that ventures.
Okay, it's interesting. A lot of those exposed ledges and rocks here are all very rough on the western side, and so smoother on the eastern side. So from your house, it kind of goes up gradually, and then if you look at the back, it's very jagged and it seems like a lot of those do that. So I don't know. I'm not a geologist. I don't know what that means, but
I don't either.
I've noticed that they.
We got to go find that guy.
Yeah, right.
That geologist and tell us a story. Yeah. So, looking at that spot, it's been interesting. It was interesting when you first began to clear out that area. As we both know, our street is a great street for people walking and for bicycling and for family gatherings. And I would sit in our living room and watch people when you were cleaning that out, look up there, and then all of a sudden people would stop because it was different than what it was before. And So was really a great addition.
Oh, thank you.
At that time.
We love the yard. I think we feel very fortunate to have, an acre of land and be able to have that sunset every day, but also be close to town, right? We're only 3/4 of a mile to the post office or downtown, so it feels nice. It feels like we were able to have the best of both worlds there.
Yeah. Well, what kind of changes have you seen in the community since you've come here?
Well, that's a good question. I feel that as far as the amount of time we've been in Vermont, it hasn't been really that long, right? I mean, there's a lot of families here that have been here for a very long time. I feel the pace of changes in Vermont is pretty slow. I mean, when we first moved here, coming from outside of Washington, D.C., we were in Silver Spring, Maryland. That first year, or even 2 years or 3 years, I would see pieces of land outside of town and wonder, why are there not houses on that? Or even think, oh, that'll be really nice when there's houses on that. Even like the Bushy Hill property there.
Right.
We lived out that way our first year, and I would drive by it, and it was for sale for a very long time, and acres and acres worth of property that would have been a beautiful place for some houses so close to town on that hill overlooking all the mountains, and it just kind of sat there. So for me, I feel like Vermont really hasn't changed very much. I think the population here seems to be generally older, and a lot of the younger folks kind of might not stick around. And I would be surprised for my 3 kids if they ended up living in Vermont. That would be a surprise for me. So.
But it's a place where you wanted to be, right?
Yeah. It was a great move for us to come here. I think our kids did excellent at the high school, and they felt, very involved in sports and activities and clubs, and they had wonderful friends, and so we were very happy with the move, for sure.
And I think about our children. They thought that we shouldn't go north. We were in New Jersey. We shouldn't go north. We should go south. That's what parents do. They go south. They go to Florida. And I said, no, not these parents. And we've always been appreciative of the 4 seasons, and then the extra seasons, stick season and mud season, and I don't know, I must have missed another one in there someplace. That's a very, very special time.
And, we were talking about gardening earlier, Len. I feel very connected to the seasons when you think about the gardening side of things,
Do you see yourself as a gardener?
I really enjoy digging in the dirt. I feel like as a species, we have gotten away from some elemental things that are necessary for us to kind of thrive. And I think, being outside, playing in the dirt, planting things, being in the forest, I think that's a really healthy thing to do. And it's hard, I think, as a species, we've gotten away from a lot of that stuff with our technology and our houses kind of being climate controlled. And so for me, I find it very spiritual to be outside and work in the garden. I really enjoy that my neighbors are patient when I do weird things like the hugelkultur or the big lasagna, beds that sit there dormant for a year or 2 or 3, and no one knows what that is.
Talk about it, because that's one of the great mysteries of our neighborhood. But talk about that.
There's a few books that I've enjoyed, but one book specifically just talks about permaculture type ideas where you could have you want a lawn requires maintenance. Some gardens require weeding and things like that. But permaculture is an idea that it's a little bit easier to have these things that can last for years and years and years. So obviously fruit trees, berry bushes, things like those are pretty common. But we've also done the shiitake mushroom logs. So, that's something that those will last 20 years, and they will keep coming back year after year to give us as many shiitakes as we can eat, which is way more than we ever need, right? I end up putting a bunch away.
Right.
The hugelkultur in the front there, that's going to be a raspberry bed. So that's a German word.
How long? Because I remember when you talked to me about that, you said 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
This column of dirt.
And I maybe you remember looking at it a few years ago when we put it in. I think it's been 5 years now, and it was a lot taller, right? It was about 3 feet tall, and now it's kind of decomposed. So what that is, hugelkultur is a German word. I think it just means forest culture. I don't know. I'm probably making that up, or I'm totally wrong. But
it's all right.
Yeah. But basically, the idea is you take a lot of wood, dead wood, you remove the sod from your lawn, you dig down a little bit, and you just start stacking wood in there. Big pieces, long pieces. We put some, my son Caden and I worked on it, we put some logs that were this wide, we put little sticks, twigs, and you just put it in a big mound. You put your sod back on top of it with the grass side down, and you just let it sit there. And so I think it's been probably 4 years or so. I don't think it's been 10 years, but I think it's been 3 or 4 years. And then finally this year I put some raspberry plants in there. And so my expectation is that next summer that's going to be completely filled in with raspberry.
Oh, you get the neighbors into it.
Well, come on over with the bucket, Len, and come grab some.
Yeah, I was thinking there was going to be a jump for skiing.
Yeah.
And you're going to come right into my yard.
Right off the rock, boom, hit the hugelkultur.
You're not the first, I think, with animals, but in our neighborhood, but you've had animals, and tell us about your animals.
Well, again, thank you for being patient, because I don't know technically if we're allowed to have all these animals that we always have running around there, but no, there are some folks that have the hens in the neighborhood, and that we started with the hens, the laying hens, and they're great. I really think that everybody could do this. I think backyard chickens are pretty easy. They eat all your leftover scraps. They're
beautiful creatures.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They give you fertilizer that you can use for your garden after a little while, and they lay eggs. They're not laying right now because it's wintertime, right? So, but come March, April, even February, they start to go again, and by then you have more eggs than you can eat. So we started with hens. We did that for a while. Obviously, there are predators in our backyard, so we've seen bobcat multiple times. I've seen owls attacking the hens. I've seen hawks attacking the hens. I've had a skunk that was trapped in my hen house that I couldn't figure out how to get out, and eventually I got it out, but it did spray. It didn't spray me, but it sprayed enough in the air that it was kind of getting us.
Yeah.
Raccoons, possums.
All that.
Yeah.
All that's on the other side of the road, up the hill, right?
Yeah, you didn't know what was in the backyard.
Yeah, beyond.
Yeah. So this summer we had a bobcat that took a few of them away, and I saw it 3 times. Once very early in the morning at about 5:30 in the morning, once at dusk, and then once in midday I actually saw it.
Okay.
So that's the only downside with hens. You will lose a few every once in a while to the predators.
But that's again part of the concern about being close to the earth and being involved with all that's there.
And that's not the other animal's fault, right? Everyone thinks chicken is delicious, so the animals just see it as an easy way to eat. Other creatures we've done the lambs 2 times, so we've done 2 sets of lambs 2 times, and we've done this summer we had ducks that were kind of fun. They would go swimming in their little baby pool, and we've done meat chickens, and we've also done rabbits for a few years. We bred rabbits and ate them. We stopped doing that though. It was kind of sad. They were just in a cage most of the time, and it wasn't as much fun for the rabbits.
No. Yeah. Okay. How would you summarize this in terms of your involvement in the community and what this means to you and what you think it can mean for others as well?
Well, we touched on this earlier. I feel fortunate that my job schedule, being able to work from home, is good, and so I think it's important to live in. If you're living in a tiny town like this, I think it is important to get involved and participate. So I one of the things I respected about Middlebury, and one of the things we were excited about moving here, was that almost all the kids go to the local public schools. Right. So when we were in Silver Spring, Maryland, it wasn't like that. There was lots of different school choices: public, private, parochial. Whereas here, I felt like everybody was in it together. So, in terms of volunteering, I think our community does a good job of staying active and doing different things. I like to volunteer for the Better Middlebury Partnership. So we're the group that puts on some of the events around town and keeps downtown vibrant and things like that. So I love living here. It's been fun.
Good.
I can't believe it's been almost 12 years.
What we hope to do is to find some pictures, right?
Okay.
From your collection and some others, and maybe do a little picture essay about this site that you have provided for our community. It's a beautiful place to watch the sunset. It usually comes across the whole area, or it's just a tiny little piece, And in either way, it's a remarkable thing, and so we'll be working on that, and we'll add that to what we've said today. And we thank you for coming.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Len.
Sure.
This has been an honor to be here, and I've enjoyed having you as a neighbor over the years. So I'm glad you're able to see that sunset, because it is spectacular.
It really is, but we'll see how many more people come to watch the sunset. But it would be nice. Well, thank you. We believe that story matters. Story matters. This has been a great experience of talking to one of our friends and hearing about his story and his family story and our story. And so thank you for tuning in, and tell us your story.